Welcome to Next to Madison, a podcast to help you live your best life.
Welcome back to another fun and exciting episode of Next to Madison. I am your host, Madison Malloy. I am so excited to have this guest back with us. He came on last spring and I decided to check out one of his seminars in Mexico, and it changed my life. It's the reason I have a book. It's the reason I am so clear and focused on my path. It was absolutely amazing. So he is back on this episode, and we are talking about the importance of kind of building a brand, but most importantly, the importance of knowing how to tell a story. No matter if you own a company or you're working for a company, the power to tell a story can build confidence in you that can take you to the next level. Storytelling is one of the most impactful ways to build relationships and, of course, build confidence. So this is an episode you absolutely must listen to. This is the guy that going to one of his seminars changed my life. I'm going to stop talking so we can get into the interview. I talk about that as well. So yes, this is about the power of storytelling and building a brand, because we are all one story away from our lives changing, and most importantly, our income changing. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode with Clint Arthur, and we'll be right back after this brief message.
Hey, it's Madison Malloy. I'm excited to announce that my new book, Time to Lighten the Fuck Up, is now available online and in stores. You can pick up your copy today by going to Amazon or barnesandnoble.com. This new book is a humorous self-help guide to help you remove the obstacles that are holding you back so you can take things less seriously and live a more enjoyable life. I'm so excited for you to read it. Now back to the show. All right, we are back with our amazing guest. He was on the podcast last year. After that podcast, my whole life changed. So I'm so excited for him to be back on this show. I've got great questions. This is going to be a very impactful and motivational episode. You are not going to want to miss it. So I'm so excited to have back with us celebrity entrepreneur, author, speaker, coach, all around badass, Clint Arthur. How are you?
Hey, fantastic to be back with you, my beautiful woman, my little girl who became a beautiful woman. And I like to think that something at my event had something to do with it, but you were saying how coming to Acapulco, Mexico changed your whole life. How did that happen? What does that mean?
It did. So I'll share. So after he was on the podcast last year, it was pre-recorded and we had ended the episode and we started talking, and he said, you should come to Mexico. And I said, when? He said, Monday. It was Thursday at 5:00 in the evening. And I go, and a million reasons in my head came through saying why I shouldn't go. I had work. It was last minute. I didn't have my highlights done. I needed a bikini wax, all these things. And something in me was like, you know what? On the other side of discomfort is where your life changed. So I gave you my credit card and went and bought a ticket to Acapulco, which is very difficult to get to. Got there, and it was the most life-changing event. It was the impact, influence, and income event. Yep. It was amazing. Met so many great people that I still keep in touch with today. And you just were able to communicate with us and bring stuff out of us that kind of made it more clear of what you should do and what like your true calling and kind of your purpose is. And it was amazing. You were the one that encouraged me and motivated me to get a book done. And 5 months later, the book was out and it's been doing great. And now I'm writing more books. So
hey, I loved your book. I got the audio, and if you're a fan of the podcast, you will definitely love the audio book.
Yeah, thank you.
Time to lighten the F up.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of that saying, and I agree. And I love the philosophy of the book. I love the content of the book. I love the performance of the book that you did. I'm a huge fan of that book. So congratulations on a job well done.
Well, thank you so much. And that means a lot, because you've written what, 7, 8, 9 books?
I've written more than 21 books that have been bestsellers on Amazon. And my latest book, Wisdom of the Men, was nominated for the Pulitzer Prize. And I just wrote a novel. So I'm really excited about that, which I haven't published that one yet. I'm going to publish that one on my birthday in August. So I'm really excited about that, because I was scared. And a lot of this stuff has to do with breaking through fear. Fear when you were a little kid, you were afraid of the boogeyman in the closet, and then your dad would come in and turn on the light, and it was a coat on a hanger with a weird shadow being cast by a light in the window. That was the boogeyman. And very often, my favorite quote from my favorite person, General George S. Patton: accept the challenges so that you can feel the exhilaration of victory. And that's what fear is all about, because most of the time you are afraid of the challenge. And then when the challenge is conquered, then you feel the exhilaration of victory. And most of the time, fear is conquered because the fear is not real. It's a fear of something that's not real, that's not going to happen. And when you go through that fear and you get to the other side, you get to the exhilaration of victory. And that's really how you come alive. And when I was writing the novel, I was afraid. I had all the who am I? Like, who am I to be writing a novel? I'm just a business author. I just write, money-making stuff. Why do I think that I can entertain people? Is this going to be good enough? All these, internal who am I things that I know are going to come and get me. But I just kept moving forward, putting one foot in front of the next. And really, I have found in life, if you just keep putting one foot in front of the next, in front of the next, in front of the next, you'll be amazed at how far you can go. And right now, my novel has 53,000 plus words, and it's a international economic thriller.
I love it. I know. So it is such a different writing skill, going from business and nonfiction to fiction. It's a whole different animal. But you also, before you did this, you were writing screenplays for Hollywood.
Yeah, I wrote 30 screenplays when I chased the Hollywood dream. After I graduated from the Wharton Business School, I went home to get the attaboys. And what happens? My parents, instead of having a love fest, they get into the hugest argument. My dad storms out of the house, slams the door. I turn to my mom. I go, Mom, the way he resents you all these years, have you been cheating on Dad? And I'm sitting there in the living room where I've sat a million times on the couch with her. And I'm thinking, holy cow, where did that come from? I never even thought that idea before. And then I'm thinking, wow, what kind of a rude person have I become to ask that question to my own mom? And then I'm thinking, why ain't Mom answering that question? And then she goes, he's not your real father. Your real father was a doctor at the fertility clinic we went to for 6 years trying to have you, and you look just like him. And I'm like, what?
Is that true?
That's 100% true. Exactly like that.
Unbelievable.
And now I just told you a story. See?
Yeah.
And what I've learned, I learned it back in my second to last book. Okay. My second to last book was called Celebrity Entrepreneurship. And that is a complete nonfiction book told all in story. Mm-hmm. And then that was the first time I did that. And then my second book, where I did nothing but story, was Wisdom of the Men, which was nominated for the Pulitzer Prize. And it's a whole book of stories from my life and the lessons that I learned. And what I've learned is, if you can't tell it in story, then you can't tell it. You can't teach it. You got to teach it in story. So I have been like, it only took me 50 something years to figure out that you got to tell stories when you're writing and speaking on stages, and that all anyone is really interested in is story. So luckily for me, I've learned how to tell stories since I've been mentored by some of the top storytellers in the world. Oprah Winfrey is a mentor. Frank McCourt was my high school creative writing teacher, won the Pulitzer Prize for his memoir about his childhood. Arnold Kopelson won the Academy Award for Best Picture for his movie Platoon. He was my best friend's father. He was a mentor of mine for a while and really shaped my whole career as a celebrity entrepreneur. So these people have been really influencing my life as far as telling stories is concerned. And I think that's why I have done so well with this book. I read the first 2 chapters to my wife, and she's like, oh my God, this is the best thing you've ever written. And it's all story. So, that's
I love it.
Really important. Yeah.
And, sometimes it's crazy how life comes full circle. Maybe your novel will get picked up and turned into a movie.
Yeah. Wisdom of the Men should be turned into a movie. An article was just written about it, calling it Forrest Gump for the 21st century, because I've met a lot of really smart people and famous people, Dr. Oz, Mick Jagger, Mike Tyson, Andy Warhol,
Wow.
all that's wisdom of the men. 5 presidents of the United States I have personally met and learned from, and I ask them a question or learn a lesson from the whole experience, and that's what's in Wisdom of the Men. But yeah, I mean, I think that, look, it's all about story. If you're a
Yeah.
great storyteller, you will change your relationship with people based on stories. People will be more compelled to want to be around you. Like we just went on a nice trip. My wife and I, we went to Venice and Rome, and then we made a side trip to go have dinner at the greatest steak restaurant in the world called Bodega El Capricho in Leon, Spain,
Oh,
which was
wow.
a 3-hour drive from Madrid. And my wife's friend from Ireland came, and with her boyfriend, and they joined us for dinner on New Year's Eve. And she's a fantastic storyteller. These freaking Irish people, they're so good at telling stories, and they're just so likable. When you are a good storyteller, it just makes you more
Yes.
likable.
That's true. And that was something really big that you pushed when I was at your seminar in Acapulco last April, was the stories. And I remember when you first said it, all of us were kind of looking around, and some had been there multiple times, but for the new people looking around going, I don't have a lot of stories. That's kind of what we all said. Some people are like, I don't have any stories. But you were able to trigger memories and topics where people, all of a sudden, we had this notebook and there's probably a potential of 25 to 30 stories. And everyone
Minimum.
pretty much said, I have no stories. And sure enough, they had a story. So everyone has a story, it's just tapping into it.
Yeah. And if you are an author or a speaker, a coach, any kind of consultant, advisor, or expert, and you get paid ostensibly for what you know or do for people as services that you render, stories are the key to your success, both
Yeah.
as the expert, because like I said, if you can't teach it with a story, you're really going to have a hard time teaching it at all, because people won't be paying attention. They'll just be texting or surfing Facebook. But for your marketing, storytelling is the best, most powerful, most profound, easiest, and cheapest type of marketing that you can do, because it doesn't cost you any money to tell your own stories. And really, that's where the meaning of your life is going to come from. That's more important than anything else to me, is the meaning that you will be able to discern about your own life. The meaning you'll be able to understand about your own life comes from looking at your stories, seeing what happened to you. Because I really believe that some things in this life that we experience change us. Not everything,
Completely.
not everything, but some things change us. And when you understand what changed you and how and why, and what the ramifications of that change have become, and how it sent you from this direction to this direction instead, well, then you become a person who has a deeper understanding about your life and a deeper level of character, which is
Oh,
really a good thing.
yeah, absolutely. And I remember when I was at your seminar, we had to go around, we wrote down and we started telling a story, and then you would critique the story. And what was so important is when you're telling the story, you want the person listening to have this full painted picture in their mind, be able to like kind of hit the sensory areas to where it's the detail. Like when I was telling the story to you guys about being trapped in a nudist colony,
Yes.
and the limp dick, and I'd never seen one before. And you were like, all right, we got to hone in on that. And then you retold the story. I think I still have it in my recorder of how you retold it. And it was so funny, but it had everybody engaged because you just heightened the detail and created more of a picture where people could really imagine it in their mind. And that was something that was like, whoa, that's the key.
Well, this is one of the things that I love the most about the study of story, and also when I'm teaching story. I mean, look, when
Yeah.
you sit down in a room and you deliberately pursue excellence at a topic, and in this case, storytelling, you're going to start coming up with distinctions and getting better. You can't help but get better. And one of the things that I learned when I was chasing the Hollywood dream, I took seminars, I I took acting lessons. I did all kinds of stuff. And one of the things I learned in the acting lessons was that you have to use your senses to be more present in the moment. You have to look, listen, touch, taste, smell, feel, your senses, right? And it's the same with story and writing, is you want to use the senses. So for example, we were talking about bone broth earlier, and I was telling you how, after I just did this water fast that I did for 14 days, drinking nothing but water, then my wife and I did 4 days of nothing but bone broth, beef bone broth. And it's very rich when you include the beef feet and hooves, because they're so rich in collagen. And it ends up like I went from only drinking water to eating this like thick beef stew kind of broth. And it was a real intense sensation for me to have that earthy and powerful beef flavor.
Was it gross?
No, it was like I was getting high on it practically. I was really high on the water fast. That's what I loved the most about the water fast, because I've been clean and sober. I quit smoking pot accidentally in December of 2009 when I went to a raw vegan retreat. And then the day after I was on the Today Show on New Year's Eve of December 31st, 2013, Brooke Shields and Willie Geist interviewed me on the Today Show. And Brooke Shields goes, you talk a lot about being comfortable outside of your comfort zone. I said, yeah, life begins where your comfort zone ends. And she says, that sounds scary. And I said, when it's scary is when it's great. And I'll tell you what, the idea of not eating for a couple of days and then stretching it out into 14 days, that was scary every step of the way. But what I felt was, this was the most fascinating thing, is that I felt like I was high. Like when I used to smoke pot all the time, a lot of times I'd feel like, I'd have this altered sense of reality, obviously, because I was on a drug. And then when I would go through the day, I would be like, oh, well, I know I feel this way, but nobody else knows I feel this way. And I felt the same way when I was not eating. I was, I had that same kind of altered state. And I knew I felt that way, but nobody else knew that I felt that way. And I felt exactly like I used to feel when I was high or drunk. And
so it was like a natural high. Now, did you consult with a doctor before you did this?
No, I saw some guy doing this same thing on Facebook. He was doing a 21-day water fast, and he had done them before, and I was following along with his posts. And he's done them many times, and he's the one who recommended bone broth as a refeeding tool when you're reacclimating yourself to eating, so you don't go into anaphylactic shock or something like that. I don't know. But that's how I came across this. I had seen other people do it before, and I had wanted to always do this, but I never thought I would do 14 days, but I did. I'm an intense person. I like to have intense experiences. And when I got through the first 4 days and I wasn't hungry anymore, that's when I thought to myself, wow, I could really go a long time. I wonder how long I could really go. And the more I went, the more I felt like I was high and the less hungry I felt. So I just kept going for 14 days.
Was your mind more clear?
No, I would say by the end of it, I was like 85% capacity physically and mentally.
Okay. That's pretty good though, for not eating for 14 days. It's actually pretty remarkable.
Yeah. It was a tremendous experience, and I'm really glad I did it. And I will definitely do it again.
I might do a 1-day water fast. I don't know if I can do a 14. Maybe I'll start with 1 day.
Yeah. Or 3.
I was gonna do a grape. Have you heard of the grape detox?
No, but I have done the master cleanse. Have you done the master cleanse with lemonade? And it's like lemon juice and grade B maple syrup.
I haven't done that.
And cayenne pepper. That's the master cleanse. So it's a spicy lemonade that I did that. Allie and I, my wife and I, went to Burning Man and did the master cleanse at Burning Man for a week. Yep.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's where you actually do drugs. You're like, I don't do drugs, but I'm gonna start. You know what's so funny? I just on my shelf over here on my desk. Look what I got.
Oh, yeah.
It's your thing. And I randomly opened a page, and one of the things we wrote down was make the most of every opportunity.
100%, baby. And
Yes.
the corollary theme is to, make something out of nothing, make something out of everything, and make everything out of everything.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's true, because everything can be an opportunity. I think it's just how you look at it. And there were so many great things that you talk about. And I liked how you were talking about there's one that's your untold stories will speak through your body.
Wow.
Let's talk about that. Is that your body language and your hand gestures, or like
No, no.
what
What
is
that
that?
really means is that your untold stories. So the untold stories are the stories that you don't want to tell.
Okay.
Your untold stories are the stories you don't tell anybody. These are your secret stories that you're embarrassed about or ashamed of or afraid people will think less of you because of those stories. And these secret stories are the ones that will come through your body as cancer or other
Oh,
disease because they are festering inside of you. And the way you beat the disease is by getting the stories out, by telling them so that they don't have power over you. I mean, think about it. They're
yeah.
just ideas. I know to you, the idea, whatever your secret story may be, I don't know, whatever it is, for people, I've seen all kinds of stories of divorce or molestation or crimes or being a victim or making somebody the victim or being the one wounded or wounding somebody. I've seen everything, and it's the same. These
Yeah,
ideas have power over you. For me, it was
it's
the
true.
fact that when I chased the Hollywood dream, I moved out to Hollywood after I found out about my father not being my real father, and I started writing screenplays, going on auditions, and charging everything on my credit cards. And that only lasted for a few years. And then I was a taxi driver, and I drove a yellow cab in Los Angeles for more than 6 years. And that was
Wow.
the hugest point of embarrassment for me because all my fraternity brothers from the Wharton Business School were making millions and some of
Yeah.
them billions with a B
Yeah.
in hedge funds, on Wall Street, REITs, you name it. My fraternities were getting rich and my brothers were getting rich and I was a cab driver. And that was a secret for me for, I believe it was 16 years. And I didn't tell anybody about that for all that time. And then when I started telling that story, I noticed a significant jump in my income. And I didn't tell anybody the story about finding out that my father wasn't my biological father for 26 years because my mother said to me, "Don't tell that story because it makes me sound like I was a slut." And you know what? I had to come to the realization that my mom wasn't paying my mortgage.
Yeah.
I was the one who, as Oprah Winfrey said, I said, "Oprah, what's the most important thing you ever learned?" And she said, "You are responsible for your own success." I was
Yeah.
responsible for my own success. And this was a story that happened to me. Okay. And this was a story that changed my life. And here I was not making something out of everything. I was hiding that powerful story in my life out of deference to her, but I needed that story for me, and I needed to start telling that story so I could
Yeah.
understand me and my life. And when I combined the taxi driving story with that story of finding out who I really was and wasn't, that's when I started making seven figures a year. Two great stories. And
And
that's
that's
the power.
probably, yeah. And it's because, you stepped into your authentic self, into your truth.
Yeah, I started acknowledging and being who I was and not
Yeah.
hiding anything about who I was. I look in this interview, you don't know me, the viewer, you know me, Madison, but
Yeah.
the viewer doesn't know me.
Right.
And you already know that I used to smoke pot, that I quit, that I don't drink alcohol anymore. I stopped after I was on the Today Show the next day. I woke up and I said to my wife, "You know what? I think I'm done drinking." And before that, if you were to ask me what's your favorite thing to do in life, I would say getting drunk. That was my favorite hobby. And I was a
Wow.
connoisseur of fine wine and tequila and scotch
Yeah.
and beer and all great things alcoholic. And, and then I just stopped. And you also know that I've, done juice fasts and
Hmm.
bone broth and water fasts. And, all these things about me. And that's just making the most out of who I am.
Yeah. And you learn to capitalize on it. You were saying, at your seminar that, you know, everyone has a story inside of them that could really turn them into a millionaire. And it's true. So everyone listening to this, I would encourage you all to A, sign up for one of Clint's events, and B, start writing down stories. You can trigger yourself by saying, what was the most what happened to me when I was 5 that I remember the most? What was my first date? What was my because you were doing this with us in the pool. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden we had all this stuff, and then it was like, all right, circle these. And so you are sitting on a great story. And even if you work at a company, being a good speaker can, get you to the next level. So really think of those stories, but definitely sign up for one of Clint's events, because that's where you're
That's the
really going to
part
get it.
about that's the part about employees that blows my mind, is that they don't think that investing in their own personal development is going to make a difference. They're so
Yeah,
used to
that's true.
like having the company send them to trainings or whatever kind of
Yeah.
development that they do, that they don't think that putting their hand in their own pocket might make a difference. But you are responsible for your own success. And the more invested you are in your own success, the more you're going to get out of it. And if you're the one paying for the training, then you're going to get a whole
Yes.
lot more out of it than if somebody else is paying for you to do it. It's really funny. We've had, people, for whatever reason, they don't come, so they send an employee in their place. And that employee, they're very polite and they have a nice time, but they don't ever do anything because they have no skin in the
Ah.
game. You got to have skin in the game. And if you are able as an employee to develop your speaking abilities, your storytelling
Mhm.
inventory, your inventory of your own life-changing stories, if you can become a captivating storyteller, if you use the methods and the tricks that I teach about how to win every dinner party or boardroom, right? That's
Mhm.
part of what I deliver at that event that you attended and that
Yeah.
you're actually coming to again,
Yeah.
then you will have a huge advantage over the guy in the next cubicle who doesn't have this stuff, who really just knows how to
100%.
type on a keyboard, and or maybe to sit there and have a recurring loop video on their Zoom when they're just they're not even I know I have this one guy. It's so funny. He has a six-figure job working for a government, and he's also pursuing his own personal coaching type of transformation. But he shows up on my Zooms, on my weekly coaching webinars, and sometimes he'll put that loop. He's got like a 5-minute loop that he plays when he's in meetings with the government. Sometimes he'll put that on when he's on one of my coaching Zooms. It's really, really funny. I mean, who would think to do that except for a government employee?
Yeah, seriously. And for anyone listening to this as well, like if you aren't an entrepreneur but you're working at a company and you're happy, you're doing well, or maybe you're not happy. The one thing that I've learned, because I've worked for companies, is there's no safety there. There's not. At any moment there could be a restructuring, the company could get bought, you could get laid off. This is your time to hone these skills while you have a paycheck. So
Yeah.
if something happens, you can just bounce right into something new, and you've got all these skills. Don't wait until all of a sudden you're panicked, wondering where your next check is coming from. I think you're absolutely right, where everybody needs this skill, because being an employee is no safety net. It's not.
No, maybe it was for our parents. I don't know.
It
Maybe,
was. It
maybe.
was. Yeah, people got a job and they stayed there and they had a pension and they retired, and life was a lot cheaper and you could have one or two homes and life was good, but that is not the case anymore, and I think you always have to be prepared and have your eyes open for the next opportunity. So I think that no matter who you are, listening to this, everyone can benefit from being a good storyteller and a good speaker, because
And if it gets
communication
you
is
out of
key.
if it gets you out of your comfort zone, that's an extra bonus too. And it will get you out of your comfort zone,
Yeah.
especially if you tell the stories that you don't want to tell, which is where I really try to take everybody who comes to my events, to get to the stories that are not going to just change your career and your personal life, but it can also heal you or prevent you from getting those terminal diseases that will manifest if you don't get
Yes.
these secret stories out. So it's really a great thing.
No, it is so true, because it's that stress, or that kind of shame that
Yeah.
really kind of, I had my dad's cousins, they my grandmother's sister got married, and back in the day, the number of kids you had was like a status symbol. The more kids you had, the higher you were in society. That was some sort of weird mindset that they used to have. So she ends up having 12 children, okay, from like 1945 to like 1965 was when all these kids were born. Well, apparently there was something wrong in their DNA, and 6 of the 12 children ended up with schizophrenia. And it was this torment of just, it literally, we knew that they were sick, but we didn't know what exactly went on during the childhood, what happened with the deaths of the people. But the 2 sisters, the 2 youngest, were girls. They luckily didn't get schizophrenia, but they had, one of them, used to have kind of drank too much. But they were always hiding these really dark secrets of what went on behind those doors. And they finally decided to give the rights to a well-known writer. And he wrote a book. And I was the first one to read the book, because I was able to interview the author on my podcast. And the shit in this book, I had to put it down at sometimes, because I was so horrified and disturbed and grossed out. But they were holding on to these secrets and this shame of what their life was like, and the torment and the torture that they went through, that getting this story out just kind of healed them and lifted them to kind of a new light. And now they had no shame. They had nothing to hide. Nobody could say like, oh, we know about your life. The whole world knows about your life. And it became the best-selling book during COVID.
Wow.
It was called Hidden Valley Road.
Wow.
Yeah, it was absolutely, it was an unbelievable
When's the
story.
movie?
I think they're working on that right now. I know that
Yeah.
they just had a documentary, but they're trying to get the rights and everything like that. But there's some people that are involved. But I'm telling you, you could tell that there was a lot of just hidden anger and resentment. And now these people feel free. They really feel, because the story is out there.
Look, especially for a person who is a financial advisor or a doctor or an IT expert or a lawyer or anybody who renders a service based on what you know, ostensibly, everybody else knows all the same stuff that you know, unless you've invented your own thing. And most people
Right?
have. So what's the difference between you and the next doctor, or you and the next lawyer, or you and the next financial advisor? The only difference is you. And what are you? You are the sum total of the stories of your life.
Good or bad. Sometimes the shameful stories are the ones that break you to the next level.
Whatever the stories may be, that's the only difference between you and the next guy.
Mm-hmm.
And the real question is, can you tell the stories in a way that is interesting and compelling and entertaining for the people? Because really, only people want is entertainment. And if you can't entertain them, then they're not going to pay attention. And when you're telling these stories, can you shape them in a way? Can you communicate them in a way where you're utilizing them to show a point? Like, and obviously, as a result of all this, I became a great writer. I wrote 30 screenplays and I have 21 best-selling books, and I studied with Academy Award winner and with Oprah and with the Pulitzer Prize winner. And now my book is nominated for the Pulitzer Prize. And therefore, you should come to my seminar and learn about stories from me. See?
I agree, you guys. And it's definitely, it is so worth it. I still was like, I have to go to Mexico in 3 days. Oh my gosh, I can't
Hey, but
do
wasn't
this.
it
I had a
fun?
million excuses. It was the best time. It was the most life-changing event I've ever had. It literally changed my life. It changed my life. And everybody that listens to this podcast knows by now that I have a book. I run it after the intro. I remind you, because of your event, I have a book.
That's so awesome. And it's a great book. And you have to keep promoting it for like at least a year, every day. Every day. You have to
I
keep
know. I got to keep promoting
you
it,
gotta
promoting
keep
it.
promoting it. Hey, it's funny, you got to find the right categories too. Like
Oh,
mine,
yeah.
right? Mine is called Wisdom of the Men that I'm focusing on until I release the novel. And I have it under gender studies and then men's gender studies. And I also have it on biographies of the rich and famous. And it's amazing some of the books that it's on the bestseller list in the top 100 books for biographies of the rich and famous on Amazon every single day. It's in the top 100.
That's
And
amazing.
it's pretty good. It's like in between, one day it was in between Lady Di and Elvis.
Yeah.
One time.
That's great.
The other day it was like next to this woman who, this was the craziest biography of the rich and famous. She was a aristocrat in Jamaica. And for the first 18 years of her life, she was mistakenly gendered as a boy
Oh my gosh.
because her labia were sealed and her clitoris was enlarged when she was a baby. And so she was mistaken for a boy and then wasn't able to have the corrective cosmetic surgery done until she was like 21 years old and became a woman. And then she married some British lord, and her book was, and that was the next book down on the list from mine.
That's amazing. I know it's so crazy to go in it and watch those things too. Some days you're really sucking and other days it gets a boost and you're like, what is going on here?
You got to be promoting it every single day. And look, this goes to, you got to have a book. If you are any kind of an expert at all in any topic and you get paid for what you know, you need a book. And if you don't have a book, then you don't have enough commitment to this whole process. It really is.
Yes. It's like
And
a calling card.
I have clients, and the ones that don't have a book, you're just lazy. You don't have the personal drive, ambition, and you're too lazy to write your book. You've got to focus enough to have a book. And one of the things that I'm so happy to deliver for people to come to our events in Acapulco is you go home with the outline for your book. And really, did it take you, once you had all the stories, did it take you that long to write the book?
No.
See?
Literally when I started, it was on the shelves 5 months later. It was done in 3 months, less than that.
Because once you know what to write, it's easy to write.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the next book can lead to other books. And the one thing I discovered, and you know this because you're a book writer, it's one thing to write a book. It's another animal to sell a book.
Yeah.
That's a whole different animal.
I love writing books. It's fun to write the book. It's the marketing of the book that's the work. And that takes longer. It takes much longer to market the book than to write the book usually.
No, it is very true, because sometimes you just don't know what's working and but you got to just keep building the brand and delivering the message, and that's where things will come through. But for me, like, books lead to other opportunities. This book wasn't a New York Times bestseller yet, but it opened doors for me that now I'm working on other books. I now have a top agent, and it gives you a confidence. I now have a reason to talk to media outlets because I have a message to deliver, where I didn't really have that before. I was kind of saying, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, which was true, but I feel like I didn't have the actual thing to show, which was hurting my confidence in an indirect way, even though I knew what was going on behind the scenes and my agents and production and all that stuff did, but nobody else did. Now, at least with the book, I've got something to show, and it does boost your confidence,
And confidence is everything. Selling is a transference of confidence. That's what I said when I was on Mornings with Maria on Fox Business Channel. That just came out of my mouth, and it's true. And everything comes down to confidence. All success, everything, all success, all personal success, all professional success, even in some cases, spiritual success comes down to confidence. And the more you can do to develop and build your confidence, which comes from being a good speaker, being a good communicator, being a good writer, being a good storyteller, all those things help you to have more confidence. And I think that's what it's all about ultimately in life, is getting to a point where you have enough confidence to do anything, even if you don't know how to do it. Leadership is knowing where you are and where you want to go, but not how to get there. It's that gap in the middle that is the leadership, and having the confidence to say, I don't know how I'm going to get to the moon, but I'm going to get from here to the moon. And the intervening part is where the confidence and the belief in yourself and your own personal leadership comes into play.
Absolutely. No, confidence is everything. It really is. It's even if in your own like personal life with your friends, with if you're dating or with your partner as well. I mean, lack of confidence can kill you before you start. So you always got to build the confidence.
That goes back to those secret stories again. Here you got these little ideas that are terrorizing you into keeping them a secret, and getting them out will give you power over those terrifying ideas, which will ultimately translate into more confidence for you.
Amen. Well, this was great. So, okay, remind us where we can tell everyone where they can find you, sign up for your seminar. You guys, if you have the extra money to go, it is life-changing. If you can get to Acapulco,
you don't have the money.
It's amazing.
You don't have the money.
Just
get
go.
The money.
Get the money. Because it'll make you money. But like, honestly, you guys go. Acapulco is a little difficult to get to, but I'm telling you, there's a will, there's a way, and it's worth it. And so you can find a way to get there. And I'm telling you, like this was the moment. You were the person, because of your event, that changed my life. And I know everyone that's listening on this podcast, because it's a podcast to make you happier, healthier, and wealthier, is looking for some sort of improvement and change in their life. So here's a good start. Go to Clint. It's Clint with 3 T's, right? Or you tell us what your website is.
Clint with 3 T's. I had one of my expert clients. She said, Clint, I wish you had an extra T at the end of your name, because the T's always end up on top. She invented the science of namology. What does your name mean? Namology.
Wow. That's hilarious.
And I'm like, but she was really smart. I mean, she went on Fox. She came to my TV publicity training, Celebrity Launchpad. She got on Fox LA just like that, which is the top. She was on Fox LA multiple times. She was on Fox New York multiple times, because her science is so good and fascinating. So I was like, wow, extra T. I tried to get Clint with 2Ts.com, but it wasn't available. But I did get Clint with 3Ts.com, CLINTTT.com. And it's a nice, easy way to remember where to go to find out about all of the stuff that I'm doing. And
then you're on social media as well.
It's not so hard to get to Acapulco. It's only hard for Americans, because they think, well, you have to go. No, because you have a distorted view of what's easy to travel. But for example, if you fly to Guadalajara, you can fly directly to Acapulco. If you fly to Cancun, you can fly directly to Acapulco. If you fly to Mexico City or Tijuana, there are direct flights to Acapulco. And there are also direct flights from Toronto, Montreal, Houston, and Dallas. Okay. So and Mexico City, obviously, you know, most people don't think of flying to Mexico City as being easy, but really, I've flown in and out of Mexico City so many times now. It's like, I love flying in and out of Mexico City. They have hotels in the airport. Sometimes I spend the night in the hotel, because that's what you have to do these days. It's like, it's a different world. You used to be able to get places in a day because you could make connecting flights, but it's not so easy to make connecting flights these days. You have to assume you're going to miss your connecting flight. So I don't even try to make connecting flights anymore. I've started a whole new thing, and this would be my last story, and then I'm going to wrap it up. I was sitting on a lounge chair by the pool at the Royal Hawaiian Hotel in Honolulu, adding LinkedIn connections on my iPhone several years ago, like 2017. And I took a break and got it and checked my email, and there was an email from a charity. It said, hey, if you donate $25,000 to the Rolling Stones' favorite charity, you can go to their concert in Europe and be a VIP at the concert and go to the VIP party and meet the band and talk to them and hang out with them and get a photo with them. And remember, I'm the guy who drove a taxi in Los Angeles for 6 years, making $500 a week. And this is like 16 years later. I showed this email to my wife. I go, hey, look, we can go meet the Rolling Stones. She's like, $25,000. That's crazy. I'm like, yeah, that's a lot of money. The next day, I get another email from the same charity. And just on a whim, I pushed the button on the email and it took me to a credit card form and my iPhone auto-populated it. And I was just one click away from getting to meet the Rolling Stones. So I clicked the button. And next thing I know, I get a congratulations, you're going to meet the Rolling Stones. I'm like, hey, Allie, congratulations, you're going to meet the Rolling Stones. She goes, you did not pay $25,000. I'm like, yes, I did. We only live once. So now I had to get airplane tickets. I bought the charity package, but we had to go to Europe.
Yeah.
And the tickets were a fortune. I had to be back in California. Like I had a week to do this whole thing. And I had to be back in California to speak at some insurance conference, the $1 Million Roundtable. And it was going to cost us $8,000 to fly back from Europe one way. And that didn't seem like a smart way to spend $8,000. So I changed the search criteria on Expedia. Instead of searching for the shortest flight, I searched for the longest flight. And I found a flight on Aeroflot Airlines that went from Amsterdam to Moscow and had an 18-hour layover in Moscow, and then went directly over the pole to Los Angeles. And it was $550 for both of us one way.
Wow.
So that's what we did. And that enabled us to have an 18-hour stopover in Moscow, where we got to go to Red Square. We got the picture of us in with the mushroom cap church over our shoulder.
Yeah.
We went to an amazing dinner. We had caviar. We had, I didn't drink, but she had some Russian vodka. And it was an amazing experience. We stayed in the best Starwood Hotel. And if you ask my wife, what was the best part of meeting the Rolling Stones? And of course, we got the picture with the Rolling Stones and I got to meet Mick Jagger. And I said, so Mick, what's the most important thing you ever learned? He said, you can't always get what you want, but if you try, you might find you get what you need. And I know it's just a line from his song, but he wrote that song and it's a genius line because
yeah.
You probably didn't come on this podcast expecting to want to go to Acapulco to learn how to tell stories or to divulge your secret stories, but that's probably what you need.
Yeah.
And if you ask my wife, what was the best part about going to Moscow? What was the best part about going to the Rolling Stones concert in Amsterdam? She'll tell you it was the one night that we spent in Moscow. There you go. There's Red Square and the church in the background. And it was like the adventure that we didn't expect. So
that's true.
All that is to say, don't be in such a hurry to get places anymore.
That's true.
Enjoy the journey.
I like that. No, that's very well said. Because sometimes the most life-changing places sometimes take the longest to get to, but it's life-changing in the end.
Yeah, when we went to Burning Man, by the time you got to Burning Man, you had already changed, because the journey to get to Burning Man is a whole adventure.
Oh, wow.
Then you get to Burning Man and then you're in a different world. But to get you have to rent a mobile home in Sacramento or Reno, and then you have to drive 8 hours into the desert, or you can rent the mobile home in Las Vegas and drive 10 hours into the desert in a mobile home. It's like, the journey is an important part of the voyage.
Yeah. I like that. That was a great ending. So you guys definitely check out Clint. You can buy his books on Amazon. He also has them on his website. Look out for his novel in August. And if you want your life to change or become a better storyteller, well, get to Acapulco. He also has events at other places in the States as well. So you can go to his website and find those. But I'm telling you, it will be worth it. And the benefit as well is it's a tax write-off. So there you go. It's a win-win situation. All right, Clint, thank you so much for being with us. And thank you for everyone who's listening. We couldn't do it without you. I appreciate each and every one of you. And we will see you next time to find out who's next.
Hey, your host here, Madison Malloy. Please make sure to subscribe to the show on all podcast platforms, and please rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. Also, if you have any questions or comments, you can email us at contact@nexttomadison.com. I thank you again for listening. Bye.